Welcome into the ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. The Atlanta Hawks are screwed.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's emergency Atlanta Hawks episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Make sure you check those guys out at betonline.net. And also, if you want to check us out on the big screen, you're tired of listening to us on the phone and all that stuff and all the audio platforms and everything, wherever you can find us, you want to check us out on the big screen, how about you do this? Go to Roku or Amazon Fire or both. If that's your stilo, that's how you get down. You want to have multiple options. You can go to either one of those and search Locked On Sports Atlanta, and ATL Day Ones will pop up right there just for you. And you can see our pretty mugs each and every day like we want you to. Because, hey, we appreciate you guys for rocking with us throughout this entire time. And today is very special because, I ain't gonna even lie. I'm gonna be real honest, right? We're gonna keep it funky today. So, I was struggling, with this morning as far as like what we want to talk about and everything. And I even texted you. I was like, hey, T, I'm still gathering some information, trying to, see what we're gonna talk about, get a feel of what's going on in the city, right? And then I get this notification from an article on The Athletic. And it was written by Sam Amick, a very well-respected NBA insider.
Yes.
Who's been covering this league for a very long time. And when he says things, more than likely, he's kind of falls in the same category as, Mr. Woj, like a Woj mom. So,
or Sham Charania,
all of those guys, just super, super uber respected.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talking about the Woj bomb. I feel like he dropped the Amick bomb this morning when he started talking about the organizational structure of this team and like where they're headed. And we even talked about, I even complained and whined yesterday about where this team is headed now because it's just so many questions about from a roster, where basketball standpoint. But I want to kind of stay with the organizational piece, right? Because I think that is very important as far as where you're going. We talking about the future. You need to have some structure at the top that's going to lead you into the future or lead you to the promised land. And I think that's where I'm very concerned. And that's why I feel like the Hawks are screwed. Because when you talk about the 27-year-old son, Nick Ressler, being the manager and director. I got his LinkedIn page pulled up right now. Mm-hmm. And he's the manager and director of basketball business and basketball operations. And he's been that since December of 2020. Yeah. I didn't hear no announcement about this. Mm-hmm. Like, all I knew was Travis Slank was holding it down. They got some respected guys that were in the organization. They are no longer here. They're respected around the NBA. What is going on with this team, T? Like, because we knew something stunk. We just didn't quite put our finger on it. Now, everything's out in the open, and it's just very doodly right now. Very doodly.
Yeah, right. And the chips are still falling. So I believe this will be an ongoing story that we'll keep you guys abreast of and give you guys a reaction to. But one of the things that kind of struck me, and there's so many tentacles to this. So first and foremost, want to congratulate Kyle Korver on being named the assistant GM. I covered him. This was my first beat. So Kyle Korver was one of the first players that I ever covered. And we all know from his time in the NBA, as well as some of the writings that he's done in the Players Tribune, he's a very cerebral player, but also he was a very good player. So you have somebody in Kyle Korver who understands the team concept, because he was a player who was on a team. Remember, a team that had a whole 5 starters that were named Player of the Month back in the January, I think 2016 timeframe, that 60-win season. I'm putting all of this resume out there for Kyle Korver for a reason. So that's piece one with Kyle Korver. Mm-hmm. And then you think about other teams and winning organizations like the Bulls that he went to and contributed to. So he's been around the league and he knows what it takes to win. Number 3, he has a good sensitivity and pulse for not just people that look like him, but a sensitivity for everyone in terms of truly understanding the importance of diversity, inclusion, and equity. So that's the guy who I feel like that's a nice 1-2 punch with Landry Fields and Kyle Korver. I really am excited about that move. And we think about little nuances like Onyeka Okongwu actually developing a game outside of under the rim.
Yes.
Kyle Korver for that. So those 2 moves are in the right direction. But like you said, Nick Ressler, that was interesting to find that out. Why do we say that? Because you have family members who are in management positions. You also have young executives who do quite well. Family members like Stephen Jones. Stephen Jones has actually done a solid job with the Cowboys under his father's tutelage, right? And then you look at younger GMs right down the road, Jarvis, Alex Anthopoulos, one of the youngest GMs and one of the best.
35 years old. Yeah.
Exactly. One of the best to ever do it. Yeah. And still under 40. So you look at those things and you're like, okay, conceivably Nick Ressler could be that guy at 27. But I find it interesting that he's in sort of that business and basketball operations space. That's the same space that Travis Schlenk was in until about a month ago.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of resumes, T.
There it is.
Speaking of resumes, let's go to Mr. Nick Kessler's resume. I got it right here. Intern for the company Wasserman, the agency and all that stuff. He's trying to figure out life, back then. Which is only about 2017, so I believe. And how about this? An sales intern for NFL Network. And then he really started getting some of that NBA experience, T, when he became a business analyst for Tishman Inspire. So here's the thing. Like the one thing that I'm glad you brought up Stephen Jones, because I think that's a good example as to, you understand the nepotism, right? It's obvious, right?
Yeah, and that's okay. Situation.
But I don't have no problem with that. But he put in the work. Like, I didn't know who I didn't hear about Stephen Jones until maybe 10 years ago. And Stephen Jones is well into his 40s or 50s, I believe, if I'm mistaken.
Yes.
So when you think about, there's a time period as to we had no idea who this dude was. And he was working behind the scenes, riding along with daddy and trying to figure things out, how to run the organization if he wants to take over at some point. He figured out that, hey, I want to work in personnel. So now, you know what I'm saying? He's the general manager or whatever, has that title. He's done a solid job as far as getting talent into the building. I can't argue against that. But when you start talking about a young man that has been with the organization for 4 years, came in as coordinator of basketball operations, not too long after Tony Ressler bought the team back in 2015. He was a coordinator in 2018. Like, and according to the Athletic Sam Amick report, he was really influential in pushing that Dejounte Murray deal through, because Travis Schlenk didn't want to necessarily do that. And there was another deal that Travis Schlenk didn't necessarily want to do that a lot of people don't really know about. And it, first name T, last name, first letter in first name T, last name Y. I'll let you figure that one out. So I think that when you think about decisions being made by people who aren't basketball people, I feel comfortable saying that about Nick Ressler. When you talk about those type of people who aren't even the big boss, like you're the son of the boss, being influential on roster and staffing decisions, that is a recipe for disaster. And I think that we're on the precipice of that because we've seen how it's affected the guys on the court, T.
Potentially. But if he was able to push through that DJ deal, then that's a good sign. As long as Landry Fields and Kyle Korver truly have the opportunity to potentially rebuild this roster themselves, right?
Let the basketball guys do the basketball stuff.
Like, exactly. Because they've got, they literally have two different sensibilities, right? So these guys have been in the front office now for a minute. So they have that sensibility, but they also play the game. So they have that sensibility as well. And that's the thing that concerns me a little bit. I'm encouraged, don't get me wrong, encouraged by the fact that Nick Ressler was instrumental in the Dejounte Murray acquisition. That's a wonderful thing. However, it's all of the moving parts. It's all of these things that we're starting to unfold that are kind of still scary, because you're still looking at the roster and going, okay, great that we have Dejounte Murray. But when we look across the roster and we look at what seems to be a very exhausted Nate McMillan, and we look at all these shifts, it's like, okay, but when, if, and how will this pay dividends? And dividends are paid with you not getting in a play-in round, and dividends aren't even paid with you only making it to the opening round. Like, you got to get it out of the opening round at a minimum. So I'm just wondering, like, okay, we've been saying for a minute that where there's smoke, there's fire. So now that we're starting to see, oh yeah, there's fire, now it becomes, okay, how unsettled or settled, could be either way, right? But how unsettled is that front office? Because we now know, for all intents and purposes, that Travis Schlenk truly has no input, no interaction. He's allegedly, reportedly, not even in the building at this point.
He's free to leave at any point.
Exactly.
He can get another job tomorrow. If a company calls, if a team calls, he can leave tomorrow and take on whatever position they're willing to offer. So yeah, oh man, this is very exhausting. It got even more exhausting. We talked about being exhausted yesterday, but this is even more exhausting. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna tell you a little bit about BetOnline. But before we do that, we're gonna discuss what type of effect is this having on the players. We talked about the organizational structure and what that entails. We'll talk about the players coming up next. But first, got to tell you about betonline.net, because it is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. You can find all the scores, lines, and podcasts right there for you if you want to make an informed decision. Guess what? The NFL playoffs are popping off tomorrow. So what you want to do, you want to win some money. Of course, obviously you want to win some money. So, the thing about that is you got to go to betonline.net, because they have all of the lines, they have contests and each and everything that you want, so you can make an informed decision, so you can make you some money. You guys come to us each and every day for all your ATL sports needs. How about you, for all your sports betting information, go to betonline.net, because it is the fastest and easiest way to check in on everything that you're looking for. Now, what I want you to do, I want you to go to your mobile device, because we know that you use that mobile device a lot. There's a lot of things on there. You even can pay for your food through your phone nowadays. But instead of paying for your food, go to betonline.net, and we're gonna know exactly where the game starts.
Yeah, and we don't really know where the game is going to start or when things are really going to start rolling for the Hawks as they venture into the second half of the season. Obviously, they'll play the Pacers tonight. So this will be the first game of the back half of the season. They're at 19-22, ninth place in the East, 3 games below 500. And while that may not seem like a big deal, because people are saying, hey, maybe they'll get it together like they did last year, I hear you on that. But to keep leaning on and relying on and hoping that they're going to just magically get it together like they did last year, I think that's asking a lot. So my first thought and my first question is this. There was a lot of fallout with the fact that Trae Young did not play in that Bucks game Wednesday night.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, it was really the bench mob that held it down and brought the Hawks back to almost winning that game.
Absolutely.
But there were moments in time where you definitely said, where's Trae Young? Why is he not here? It's a non-COVID illness, right? It's not an injury. It's just an illness. And then, of course, people went down the rabbit hole about players back in the day who played with illness, so on and so forth. But as the leader, it does kind of make you wonder, because, hey, normally Trae would play on the biggest stage, right? So first and foremost, my thought is, from a team perspective, it doesn't seem like there's cohesion. So how do we go about, first of all, addressing that piece on them getting on the same page? Because the front office seems like they might be getting on the same page and getting it together, but they've got a big task ahead of them on whether or not this is the team as currently constructed that's going to get them back to where they need to be, which is at least a middle to deep run into the postseason.
And I think that John Collins put it best. Yes, I'm giving John Collins credit for saying something, right? I think he put it best. He said, okay, now what? You know what I'm saying? Because I think that says exactly what you talking about from, like, let's get back to the basketball piece of it, because Dejounte, he ain't come here for this. Like, he
Right.
want to play ball. That dude is a uber focused type dude, just from my interactions with him and just kind of watching how he moves and everything, how he speaks to the media or addresses the media. I think Trae, at the end of the day, I think deep down he wants to just play ball too. Like, I don't think he wants to be the LeBron type and have it control and say so and everything like that. He just wants y'all to make the right decisions so, hey, he can get him a championship. And I think that his pops is like that as well, Ray Young, Mr. Young. Because he understands what it is from a basketball standpoint. So, and I think that as long as the basketball is the main focus, and these guys coming together and trying to figure this bad boy out, and hopefully the people that are at the top of this organizational structure that I kind of have issues with, they figure out that stuff off the court. Maybe at some point you can get some type of consistency on the court, and hopefully that's a recipe for that. But like I said, there are no promises made when you're talking about all of this crap going on right now, and you have players answering these questions right in the middle of a season. Like, this is stuff we're supposed to be talking about in the off season. We're literally talking about an organizational teardown in the middle of the season.
And that actually that's actually a great point, because people have started putting that forth. This was a team or a city, I'm even going to say a city, where all of the focus with the word rebuild and tearing down was up in Flowery Branch. That's where that conversation was happening. You never heard anybody, especially after the acquisition of Dejounte Murray, you never really heard anybody make that comment about the Hawks being even remotely in rebuild mode. But all of a sudden, now that's a conversation of, okay, does this thing just need to be blown up or torn apart and reconstructed? And I don't know if I agree that we're at that point, although the end of the season, check me, because I may say something otherwise. But I do believe that right now, and I have been touting this for a minute, you're going to have to shake up a part of that lineup. And somehow, some way, you're going to have to get a veteran that's going to have the right, I still say at the 4. And the reason I say at the 4 is because Clint Capella is going back to the median. His body won't allow him to be great. And we don't know when he's coming back from this current injury, this right calf strain, how long that's going to be. And when he comes back, we don't know if he'll do just what he did this time, which is re-aggravate an injury so very quickly, right? So keep in mind what I just said about him. We do see a lot more aggressiveness and assertiveness from DeAndre Hunter, which is great.
Yeah.
That's great. John Collins, up and down, up and down. So I kind of wish there was a 4 out there, a veteran who could essentially come in and maybe just be able to move anywhere from the 3 to 5 spot, almost like a Kyle Korver used to be able to technically move through 1, 2, and 3. I think that there still needs to be a roster move. I don't think it's necessarily as simplistic as, hey, Trae just wants to ball, Dejounte just wants to ball, because so many reports are saying part of this challenge is Trae and how he's approaching this. And maybe part of his leadership evolution can come by getting somebody back in that locker room. Remember, there's no Vince Carter anymore. There's no Lou Williams anymore. So where's the veteran voice to really help these guys to know how to get back on track and stay focused and have the tunnel vision? That's why I do think actually the challenge lies at the 1 position, because somebody needs to come in at the 3, 4, or 5, possibly likely the 4, and really help to level set these guys and say, hey, if we want to make a splash in a very difficult and challenging Eastern Conference, here's what everybody is going to have to do to change their game and change their mindset.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, they need rebounding and shooting.
Absolutely.
And a part of that walked out of the door in Kevin Huerter, because you wanted to stay under the luxury tax, because old boy, not Mr. Ressler, Nicholas Ressler forced that trade to get Dejounte Murray to come in. Now the jury is still out as to whether or not that's going to work out. Mm-hmm. However, we know the Falcons, the Hawks will be affected long term with giving up 3 first-round picks. So
right now, that's a very great right. Exactly. Yeah. So you're looking at that piece, and you're gonna have to figure out a way to make this work, and it should, because Dejounte Murray is an all-star. So now you have 2 all-stars on your team. Not every roster in the league has that. So you're going to have to make it work. And that may be something as well, Jarvis, where they look for a sharpshooter that maybe can come off the bench, maybe a veteran sharpshooter who can do the types of things that Kyle Korver used to be able to do, right? Yeah. And so hopefully having him in as your AGM, he'll have that eye, and working with someone like Landry Fields as well, they'll kind of figure out the money piece of that. But I really feel like this is something where the players are going to have to get it together as well, because here's the thing. The front office, it seems like there's some unrest there. It seems like there's some transition. Now, I'm not saying that they can't get it together.
Very nice.
Right. But here's where it seems like it is. We know there's some unrest on the sidelines as far as the players go. Right. But with Nate McMillan, here's the thing, people, because, of course, we're doing also mid-season evaluations. Nate McMillan is someone, from what I was told by an insider in the last couple of days, everybody wants Nate to stay, except one person. But all the players want Nate to stay.
Yes.
The front office would like Nate to stay. Nate just doesn't know if he can stay or wants to stay at a minimum past the season. So here's my thing. Why am I mentioning that? Because that's the one place where you actually do have stability.
Yeah.
So leave that alone.
Yeah.
Leave that staff alone, because number one, from what I'm told, you look and what we can see, Joe Prunty's not ready. Nick Van Exel's not ready, because when you brought Nate in and Nate replaced Lloyd midseason, part of the reason he was able to do that so well is because he is a 15-year veteran of coaching.
Yes.
So that was part of what made that work. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how it plays out. But hey, look, if you want to know about this continuing saga for the Atlanta Hawks, or if you guys are excited about the postseason that's coming up in the NFL, of course, you can check out Locked On Sports Today for all of the reaction. They give you all the goods for each and every league. And it's really simple. You do what you do every day, which is watch ATL Day Ones and then check them out on YouTube. Check them out on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, we have the fun stories, the cool stories, the culture stories for you in For the Culture. They have their version of that, and they call it Take of the Day. So check them out. This is the kind of national story that may be starting locally, but as the Hawks are still contenders in the East, it has a triple down effect. So don't forget to check out Locked On Sports Today. Now, speaking of that, Jarvis, the other piece there is this. When you look across this roster, obviously we talked about a potential change to the main roster. Yeah. We talked a little bit about the bench as well. Now, here's the one thing I will say that I do want to see out of Nate in the second half. It is figuring out a little bit more how, once you get AJ Griffin, Jalen Johnson, and Bogdan Bogdanovic going, and dare I say Frank the Tank? Am I really saying that out loud? I think I am. But once you get them in the game,
you're up in my mouth.
I know, right? Like, we're really saying that. So once you get them in the game, how do you keep them in the game to be able to sustain the game and also finally figure out and fine tune some of those matchups? Because real talk, or some of those, I'll say, partnerships and subs, because real talk, I think a couple of members of that bench mob should have stayed in that game much longer Wednesday. I don't think the Bucks go on that 10-0 run that we saw. I think the Hawks win that game if some of those starters hadn't been subbed back in too soon.
Absolutely. Because when you think about a guy like Aaron Holiday, right? I know a lot of people, may look at the size and all that stuff and may be thrown off about that. Mm-hmm. But when you think about what this dude has been able to do, he's having his best year from behind the three-point line.
Yes.
Best year. And we know the defensive prowess that he brings to the lineup. And I know sometimes he can get a little bit errant with the handling of the basketball. I get that. I understand that piece.
Yeah.
But when you talk about one of the reasons why the Hawks were able to make that comeback.
Exactly.
It's one of them.
There it is.
He's playing pressure defense, picking up guys before they even reach the half court, full court. And what I'm saying? Those type of things, those are the type of things that you don't have when you make those substitutions. You know what I'm saying? I know Dejounte Murray can get down with that, but Aaron Holiday is relentless when it comes to that defensive side of the court. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
he and Bo, they got some good rapport going,
Yes. Yes.
in that second unit. And he started getting going when
Mm-hmm.
Holiday was in the lineup. So
Yeah.
I think just little tweaks here and there on and when those situations come about, and when you
Mm-hmm.
don't have your guy, the guy there in Trae Young in that
Right.
lineup, you don't necessarily have to be so quick to get all of the starters back in the game. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that that's something that Nate is going to have to play around with,
Yeah.
obviously, because doing what you need to do to win that's the goal. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care how you get it done. You need to do what
Right.
you need to do. And it's a difficult decision. Shoot. At the end of the season, shoot, you might be going anyway. So it doesn't even
Right.
matter who gets upset about it.
Yeah.
Even if it's only one person in the building.
Right. And one thing I thought about as well is the cohesion that we saw in Miami. And look, I preface it with this: Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh were friends off the court, and very close friends, and stay or remain friends to this day. So I'll preface with that. However, in their first season, although obviously they didn't win the championship that particular year, but they were quicker in their ability to figure out who was supposed to operate in what space. Yeah, it was back and forth like, D Wade, it's your team. No, LeBron, it's your team. No, D Wade, it's your team. No, LeBron, it's your team. But they figured it out really quickly to be able to get to the NBA Finals. Because remember, Jarvis, nobody expected them to get there the first year.
No,
Everybody
not at
thought
all.
it was going to take them 2 years to get to the finals. And of course, they won it the second time. And of course, then they ended up with 2 chips. My point being this: Trae Young and Dejounte Murray also have a nice, solid friendship off the court. Somehow, some way, Kyle Korver, you're a former player. Landry Fields, you seem like you have incredible rapport. And one thing I will say about Nick Ressler, he's young. And it seems like they're going towards youth in that front office. So you guys have to figure out whether you call them millennials, Gen Z, whatever in the world you call Trae and DJ. Somebody's got to figure out fast how to take advantage of that tremendous backcourt, because that backcourt, Jarvis, could be top 5 in this league. But somebody's going to have to help them figure out how to get the right balance and chemistry when Trae is supposed to be the alpha dog as far as dictating what goes on the court, when he needs to fall back and DJ needs to, come up. They've got to figure that one out, because Jarvis, I'm here to tell you, I believe that if they can get the 1 and the 2 together, I think everything else on that front court is going to fall in place and be just fine. Now, look, we always tell you guys, yesterday we tried to keep it positive as far as when you're supposed to eat your Built Bar. Well, guess what? Jarvis and I need a Built Bar today because of all this thing that's going on.
All the Built Bars. Give me them churros, man. I want to see the churros talking about. Please, now.
Yeah, please and thank you. We need some of those almond bars. We need the 100% real chocolate that those Built Bars bring, because this has been a little bit stressful. Like, we've had to process this as both reporters and fans of the Hawks. What in the world is going on? So you know what? When it's that kind of thing, and it's Friday the 13th, which can be kind of a kooky day, that's when you need your Built Bar. Again, 100% real chocolate. And as you guys know, they've actually been able to reduce the amount of fat down to 150 grams, which is really great, down from 160, and somehow have been able to increase the amount of protein in those bars from 15 to 17. So that's a good look. And of course, 4 grams of sugar. So you're talking about good, tasty treats. You're talking about something that's going to keep you healthy. And now, remember, Jarvis and I used to tell you need to go to built.com to get these bars. Not anymore. If you pull up on Wally World, you can actually get a 4-bar box there as well. And if you're a Sam's Club member, like I am, you're able to get a box of 13 of those Built Bars. So check that out. It's much more convenient for you. And trust and believe, this second half of this season, it might be up and down and it might be a nail biter. You probably need a Built Bar in your life.
Please go get you a Built Bar. And before we get out of here, T, I want to bring up a story about Lizzo that I thought was very, very interesting. And I think that when you're talking about putting things in perspective, and the famous quote by Herm Edwards, former NFL coach, don't press send or think before you press send. I think this is probably going to help a lot of people understand the importance of that particular statement. Now, Lizzo came out and said, so you know what? I believe that if people had to pay in order to comment on, because I think she had over 1 million followers on IG or whatever. So, obviously she gets a lot of comments. So she said if people had to pay, to put their comment, they may think about what they put on there, because a lot of times comment section can get really, really nasty.
Oh God, yeah.
Some of y'all get nasty on the YouTube comments, but we ain't gonna talk about that right now. But because I love y'all, I mess with y'all. It's all good. We'll figure it out. But I think that'll be something that if it came to a point where if you following somebody, a celebrity or something like that, because we got the trolls out there, if they had to pay for those comments, would they really drop them bad boys in there, T?
I bet they'll think again, just like we used to always say that you could hide behind your Twitter fingers and say whatever it is that you want to say. That's another piece. Like, let's expose them, let's figure out, let's make them, force them. Like we have Tenitra Batiste and we have Jarvis D90. Tell the truth of who you are as well. Put your name out there. And then, if you want
my first and last name, shoot.
Yeah, exactly. You want some commentary that you want to put out there, then you need to be able to pay for it. I think you should. You should. Just like we as journalists, or really anybody who's in the industry, whether it's the entertainment side or the sports side, if we want that blue check, we've got to do something to get that blue check, right? Absolutely. So, and now there's even a gold check. You should have requirements on you as well to be able to make comments about what it is that we have worked hard to be able to tell you. So when we bring you this information and you've got commentary about us, or you have commentary about players or coaches or front office staff, pay for that. You don't get to just weigh in just because. No different than a basketball game. You want to watch the team, you want to cheer for them, or you want to boo them, you're going to have to pay to get in the arena. I think that this should be the cost of admission.
Yeah, you know what? I smell you, T. I smell you on that one, because like I said, if you're gonna come on here talking crazy and everything each and every time you got something to type or put on there, why don't you go ahead and pay a couple dollars for it every time you gotta drop that comment? You might doggone think twice about that bad boy, because a famous philosopher once said, T, Roderick Davis, some of you may know him as Gucci Man. He said, you can meet me at the Chilkos. Yeah, we can meet in person if you really got something to get off your chest. But that's for another day. It's a Friday. We feeling good. And the Hawks, playing the Pacers tonight. So we'll see after this State of Emergency podcast drop down. They go ahead and get a dub.
Yeah,
or not.
Please,
and then they got
right.
to wrap
I'm like,
tomorrow Saturday.
I'm like, please come home with some positivity, because that MLK game at State Farm Arena is always amazing, man. It's always amazing. But can you just get a dub, please, and thank you?
Please. Like, we ask you to get.
No, we're not asking for much. Tyrese Halliburton isn't even playing.
But that don't mean anything. How the Hawks get down sometimes. But hey, we want to thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, after you check us out, make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Today. Got a lot of good stuff, all the national news. Obviously, the Hawks are going to be in the national news going forward because this is some very interesting stuff. So they will have each and everything that you want over there, and you can find them wherever you found this podcast, wherever you download this bad boy, wherever you listen, or wherever you watch, you can find it at Locked On Sports Today as well. Now, we won't be here on Monday, guys. We will be acknowledging Martin Luther King holiday.
Yes.
Just look at us. We're going to acknowledge that bad boy.
Unless something goes down and it's breaking news from Hawks, we will be there to let you know and give you our breakdown. Yeah. We're coming through Monday.
We're coming through. We're pulling up. If Mr. JC is donning a new uniform here
as
pretty soon.
As an example, just as an example of what could get us back.
Just throwing it out there. All right, guys. Make sure you guys check us out. Follow T at Tenitra Batiste on Twitter. You can follow me at Jarvis D90. We will see y'all on Tuesday.
Yeah.
In case I'm going down. Y'all come back now. You hear?